Having special powers used to mean having superhuman strength. But in the time of COVID, being superhuman takes on a new meaning, like being immune to all current and future forms of the virus. And that may be closer than we thought. One study in the US found some people have seemingly bulletproof protection from all variants of COVID-19 circulating at the moment. But what does it mean to be super immune, and how widespread could this protection be?
I'm Ben Fazul, welcome to our COVID-19 special and our superhero episode, or to be more precise, super immunity, one of the pandemic's great puzzles. Who has it? Could it stop the next major variant? And could it save us from outbreaks to come?
People who have survived a COVID-19 infection and were later vaccinated seem to be extremely well protected against all variants of the coronavirus. They have stronger antibodies, and more of them compared to people who have only either recovered from or been vaccinated against COVID. The antibodies also seem to fend off additional viruses, according to researchers at one university in New York.
And altogether, the plasma is now able to fight not only SARS-CoV-2, but also related subretroviruses like those coming from bats or pangolins, and even to some extent the first SARS that emerged about 20 years ago.
However, the researchers only used data from 14 people vaccinated 1 year after they were infected with the coronavirus with either BioNTech or Moderna, which are both mRNA jabs. Now, scientists want to find out whether super immunity can be achieved with other vaccines, such as AstraZeneca. And most importantly, whether vaccinated people who have not previously had COVID-19 can build up this defense against other viruses as well.
So what we have to do now is to achieve the same results, the same breadth that you see following infection by vaccination alone. That's why I'm in great favor of the third dose. It will further induce antibody evolution and will make them even better. So we hopefully be approaching what you see following natural infection.
The study has shown that the antibodies of the super immune can ward off viruses related to the coronavirus transmitted by pangolins or bats. It's possible that they may even be armed against the next pandemic.
It's very, very hard to predict, but at least it gives us an opportunity to appreciate that it is possible to mount responses that will target multiple coronaviruses. So it is it's achievable, and if we are able to reproduce those results with vaccines, then it bodes very well for the current pandemic, but also the future pandemic by related coronaviruses.
But questions remain. For example, whether these super immunity antibodies are created if an infection follows a vaccination, or how long super immunity lasts at all.
There are questions for our guest, Priyamvada Acharya, Director of the Division of Structural Biology at the Duke Human Vaccine Institute. It develops vaccines and therapies or therapeutics. Another study shows former SARS patients vaccinated against COVID may also have this super immunity. Just what sort of a breakthrough, or what sort of breakthroughs are we talking about here with these studies?
I think it's a very important finding because it gives proof of principle that it is possible to generate pan-coronavirus vaccines, and that somebody who had been exposed to a different coronavirus now with a dose of the current coronavirus vaccine is able to induce broad protection. So that is the proof of principle that a pan-coronavirus vaccine is feasible.
And can you tell us or give us an idea of how long this super immunity actually lasts?
I don't think these are new studies. I don't think we know it for sure yet, but if a vaccine is able to induce protection, and if a prior infection gives that memory to induce, to be able to react to the new vaccine and induce broad immunity, that is promising. But how long it'll last, it's a little bit hard to say now. But it seems like, going by what we have seen now, if there is a future infection in that patient, it will act like the immune system seeing another vaccine or another form of virus, and then it will mount the reaction we have seen with the vaccination. So I'm optimistic that it will be useful.
So do you also get super immunity antibodies if an infection follows a vaccination?
I do not think we know that yet. So it's hard to say, because in this case the person was exposed to SARS-CoV-1 many years back, but we have also heard reports that people who are infected with COVID-19 and then got the vaccination had better protection. So it is hard to say what it will be the other way around, but I would expect, if I were to hazard a guess, I would expect that follow a breakthrough infection after vaccination may provide some of similar benefits.
Does it tell us anything about the benefits of a booster shot, getting a third jab?
Getting a third jab will help the antibodies continuing to evolve, as we have heard. Whether it will confer this broad protection remains to be seen. I think what will happen is, and a lot of research is going into this to figure out strategies to induce broad protection. So I think the new immunogens, which are actually diverse, they may play a similar role. So whether the current booster, which is the same immunogen which was in the previous 2 doses, whether that induces broad protection or not is, I think, a little too early to say. But it will definitely allow the immune response to continue to evolve, and it will be useful for sure.
And the big question, how big a step are we taking towards a vaccine against all coronaviruses?
A lot of very smart people are working on this, and from what we have seen, there's a lot of proof of principle from the hybrid immunity findings that it is feasible. So I'm very, very optimistic that there will be a pan-coronavirus vaccine sooner rather than later.
And why don't we have this sort of thing against the flu? Can you explain that?
So one thing is flu evades. It drifts and shifts. So there is antigen, so there is natural drift, and that causes an antigenic shift, which causes the flu virus to evade the current vaccines. Plus, also the antibody D response wanes quickly, and what happens then is the immune system has to rely on memory B cells, which take some time to kick in. And we know that the flu virus it causes very rapid infection. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why we don't have this doesn't work so well against the flu, due to a few things like antigenic drift and the fact that the immunity conferred by the flu vaccine wanes quickly.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Priyamvada Acharya, thank you very much. The Duke Human Vaccine Institute.
Thank you. Bye.
A question now about your immune response to the COVID vaccines with our very own Derek Williams.
Is vaccine immune response all about the levels of antibodies they induce, or are there other factors to consider?
An antibody is a roughly Y-shaped protein produced by the body that's able to recognize and dock on to the outer surface of an invading pathogen like a virus. By docking on, the antibodies might neutralize it directly by blocking the mechanisms that allow it to invade a cell, or they might flag up the invader for destruction by other layers of the immune system's defenses. It takes some time for the immune system to learn how to tailor specific antibodies to specific pathogens. So the levels of those particular antibodies are often used as a kind of rule of thumb when it comes to judging immune status. If someone has a lot of the antibodies specific to SARS-CoV-2, then that's viewed as a sign that the person is unlikely to get a severe case of COVID-19.
But it's a lot more complicated than that, because other immune system factors, in particular what are called B cells and T cells, They also play key roles in antibody production as well as long-term immunity.
Antibody levels will tend to drop off in the months after infection or vaccination, experts say, because your body doesn't keep churning out antibodies to every disease you've ever been exposed to at high levels forever. That would be a waste of resources. Instead, immune system cells store long-term information on known pathogens and how to make antibodies against them. If you're exposed then again later, they recognize the invader and they can quickly ramp back up antibody production and immune defenses. In talking about immune response or a lack of it, however, we tend to focus on antibody levels because they're a fairly straightforward metric to measure. But they're really just one factor in a very complex system.
And a few other COVID-related stories making news before we go. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, says the European Union has exported 1 billion COVID vaccines produced here to over 150 countries since late last year. The EU has exported as many vaccines as have been given to the bloc's citizens. Malaysia's reported the lower new coronavirus cases since June, the first day below 6,000. It still has one of Asia's highest per capita case counts. Over 90% of adults are vaccinated. And the Australian state of Queensland plans to open to vaccinated travellers by December 17, allowing them in without quarantining. The Premier reckons by then they'll have vaccinated 80% of the population aged 16 and over. Nice to have you along. Stay safe and see you again soon.